Top 10 Poorest African Countries in 2023. The largest number of the world's poor live in Africa. The poorest of the poor live in abject poverty, on a total income of less than $1 a day. The countries in the poorest of the poor in Africa are scattered across the continent, from West Africa to the Indian Ocean, throughout sub-Saharan Africa to the Horn of Africa. The economies of these 20 countries share a common theme: disaster, both natural and man-made. There are people in almost every country who live in fear of poverty, most of whom even in the poorest country in Africa work hard to avoid it. In these poor countries in Africa, sadly, working hard is not enough to avoid the crushing reality of want. Here are the reasons people in 20 countries face enormous obstacles to find a way forward from poverty. We have ranked these countries in terms of GDP, gross domestic product, per capita, the total economic production of the country divided by the number of people in the country. But we also list each country's NI, gross national income, per capita, the amount of money per person that stays in the country out of all the value of goods and services it produces. These figures can be very different, and that too tells a story. 10. Sierra Leone. GDP $1,608, NI $1,670. Like its neighbor Liberia, Sierra Leone has been devastated by civil war and the Ebola epidemic. Unlike Liberia, Sierra Leone has also been plagued by natural disasters, especially mudslides. About 2/3 of the population is engaged in subsistence farming, raising rice. However, Sierra Leone is one of the few of the poorest countries in Africa that has a higher need than GDP. Expats from Sierra Leone manage to send substantial amounts of money to their families still in the country. 9. South Sudan. GDP $1,420, NI $1,090. The economy of the Republic of the South Sudan is one of the most underdeveloped in the world. It has one of the world's highest infant mortality rates and one of the world's highest rates of illiteracy in women. It has one of the youngest populations in the world, with over 40% of its population under the age of 14. And it has a range of mineral resources, including oil, gas, iron, chromium, tungsten, copper, gold, silver, and diamonds. Income disparity is severe. The average per capita daily income in South Sudan is $3.20 a day, but 90% of the population lives on less than $1 a day. 8. Liberia. GDP $1,413, NI $530. Liberia was founded in the 1820s as a refuge for former American slaves. It has come out of a horrific civil war under a woman-led government that rebuilt schools, hospitals, and roads that had been destroyed during the fighting. But an Ebola epidemic in 2014 and the completion of international aid programs in 2017 have left the country to face its considerable economic challenges on its own. 7. Mozambique. GDP $1,331, NI $460. There is some income in Mozambique, but the $871 disparity between GDP and NI shows that it does not go to Mozambicans. Mozambique has invited troops from other African nations to fight its Islamic insurgency, so it can concentrate on recovering from the theft of $2 billion in loan funds intended to shore up its fragile economy. One bright note in Mozambique: Mozambique's elephant herds have undergone a mutation so that newborn elephants don't have tusks, and will not be killed by poachers. 6. Malawi. GDP $1,234, NI $500. Over 70% of Malawians earn less than the UN poverty level wage of $1.90 per day. Compounding this reality is another: most of Malawi's workers have jobs in agriculture, which is plagued by increasingly common droughts and floods. Farmers are too poor to buy tractors and fertilizer. The World Bank estimates that the tiny, 0.8-acre, 0.3 hectare, Malawi farm produces only 11 to 18% of its potential yield. Making matters worse, Malawi's one magnificent lake Choa has largely dried up, putting 7,000 fishermen out of work. 5. Niger. GDP $1,213, GNI $540. In 2021, Niger experienced its first peaceful transfer of power with the inauguration of its president Mohamed Bazoum. The newly stable country, unfortunately, is trapped between armies of the Islamic State and Boko Haram. And the United Nations Development Index ranks Niger as the poorest country on earth, simultaneously experiencing an explosion in its birth rate and a chronic drought that leaves over 2 million of its citizens in danger of starvation. Even in a good year, the United Nations says, Niger cannot feed itself. 4. Somalia. GDP $888. NI $310. Somalia has become synonymous with violence, lawlessness, and extreme poverty. About 43% of its population lives on less than $1 a day, and the leading industry of the country is livestock production. In recent years, however, conditions have stabilized enough that foreign companies are investing in Somalia as a producer of halal meat for consumption in nearby countries, bringing living standards back to where they were in the early 1990s. Much of the country survives on remittances sent back by expat Somalis. 3. Democratic Republic of the Congo. GDP $843. NI $550. Mining for the rare earths essential for making electric cars and cell phones is the Democratic Republic of the Congo's greatest potential and its biggest worry. This huge equatorial rainforest country has been the world's leading supplier of cobalt since 1908. It provided the high-grade uranium ore the United States used to make its atomic bombs in World War II. Although American capital kept mines going in the 2000s, the country has recently sold its mineral concessions to a Chinese conglomerate. For ordinary Congolese, there are few civil rights, no employment rights, and little choice but to take very basic jobs. The economic production of the country is mostly controlled by the mines. 2. Central African Republic. GDP $823. NI $510. The Central African Republic has endured decades of religious violence and civil war. For much of the last 20 years, the central government has controlled only the capital, and in 2013 even the capital was taken over by a rebel group. Central Africans have been driven out of their homes into refugee camps, and then driven out of their refugee camps. Since 2016, UN peacekeeping troops have brought some stability to the country and the World Bank has invested in small business development, but lawlessness, disease, and lack of infrastructure cripple the economy. 1. Burundi. GDP $727, NI $210. What is the poorest country in Africa 2022? Sadly, it is perennially impoverished Burundi. Almost any top 20 poorest country in Africa list from the past 50 years will include Burundi. Like its neighbor Rwanda, Burundi passed through a period of turbulence in the 1990s during which it saw genocides against its Tutsi minority by its Hutu majority. Like its neighbor Rwanda, Burundi is tiny, landlocked, densely populated, and efficient in natural resources. But Burundi's economy is a fraction of its neighbor Rwanda's. Why? Although neither country is democratic, Rwanda has a functioning government and rule of law. The lack of legal protection for investments has discouraged business from coming to Burundi to make profits with its willing workforce. And the large disparity between GDP and NI suggests that non-citizens, many of them with relief organizations, make up much of its workforce.